Welcome to Gracefully Graying. I'm your host, Attorney Henry Garnbine. Also, Gracefully Graying has recently launched our website, gracefullygraying.com. Please view it, share it, and tell all your friends, and also look at all of the videos, including this Zoom video, on the Henry Garnbine YouTube channel. I am pleased to welcome as my guest Judge Kathleen McCarthy, who is the presiding judge of the Family Division of the Wayne County Circuit Court. Though for some reason we've lost the video. Judge McCarthy, are you there?
I'm here and I can see you.
Okay, well, welcome to Gracefully Graying.
Thanks for having me.
For some reason your wonderful countenance was lost for a minute, but you're still there. Good. First of all, why don't you tell us exactly what the activities have in the past in the family division? First of all, some of the areas you cover are paternity, child custody. So tell us a little about the typical activities that are under your auspices before we went into this horrible age of coronavirus.
Sure. So in Wayne County, we are the 12th largest court in the country. So very high volume court. And as a result, we have a very large paternity docket. That is probably about 80% of the cases that the 11 judges in the family division have. It's 80% paternity, never married parties. So that's a high volume and, difficult often to resolve because these parties don't have a lot of long-term relationships with each other. And then they're dividing a child, going between houses and coming up with trying to mediate respectfully, parenting plans that are difficult, even in the most difficult of situations when you have divorcing couples. I think it's much more difficult when you have never married parties that don't have a significant trust background, with each other in that. So we get about 400 new cases of those a week that come through our friend of the court and a case establishment setting. And the employees at our friend of the court establish those cases to try to get an interim custody, parenting time, and child support order in place. And then typically the judges, if the parties are not in agreement right up front, they're referred to the judges on the back end to either help those parties resolve that for a permanent custody hearing or to have a trial on those cases. So that's a very high volume population that Wayne County serves. And that's anyone that's receiving any type of state benefits. The state will generally start a case against typically the father. It could, if he doesn't have custody, but if the mother goes on any type of state support, then a case is started or a car is sent to our friend of the court to initiate a case against the father. So we do a high volume of that. We also do a pretty high volume of set-aside cases in Wayne County where a mother has named a particular father to be the father of the child. And then some years later, or with any time from until the child turns 18, the father may file a motion to set aside that action. We get a very high volume of those in Wayne County as well. And then we hold a hearing, and often there's genetic testing involved, and we either are setting aside the prior orders or keeping things in effect depending on what the genetic test results show. Then we also do a lot of the divorce with and without children, and a lot of custody actions. Most of our cases in Wayne County are post-judgment, where a case has been finalized through the case establishment docket that I was just explaining, but then as the children age and other situations arrive and the parents need to modify or change those, we have a lot of post-judgment custody behavior. Each judge in our division, as I indicated, there is 11 of us. We have about 1,000 active cases on our docket at any one time, and we're each responsible for about 35,000 post-judgment cases. So it's a high volume. In addition, we have a large personal protection order docket. We issue about 15,000 personal protection orders a year, and often those require hearings to either establish a PPO or a motion hearing to terminate a PPO and to determine whether a PPO should be terminated. And then we have the typical spousal support cases and parental waiver cases.
But then any other areas we haven't covered, Judge McCarthy?
You sent me a note, and I'm gonna have to put on my gracefully graying eyeglasses to. I think that covers most of it.
You do name changes as well, don't you? Or would that be?
We do. We also do name changes.
Let's go through the typical schedule that you have in Wayne County. And I know you have a courtroom not only in the Coleman A. Young Municipal Courthouse, but you also have a courtroom at the front of the court.
Right. As the presiding judge, I'm responsible for a half docket from what my other judges are responsible for. But in addition, I have the case establishment docket. So for all of those 400 cases a week that we start, we bring the parties in. They meet with employees at the front of the court to determine an appropriate amount of child support. They meet with a domestic relations specialist who tries to get the parties to reach an agreement about interim custody and parenting time. If they're unable to do that, they go on a referee docket, and a referee will make a recommendation about custody support and parenting time. And then, of course, each of those litigants has an opportunity to object. And so if any of those parties object, then I preside over at the Penobscot building on Tuesdays, the set-aside docket and the objection docket, which is very high volume as well.
So you have certain days you're at the front of the court in the Penobscot building. Other days you're the actual Wayne County Circuit Court. And every day there's a different routine.
Usually.
And isn't a certain day motion day? It used to be Fridays. Is it still Fridays for many?
You know, to be honest, each of the judges in the family division do it a little differently. It's not, we don't have a set motion day as other courthouses do. In fact, my motion days are usually Mondays to coincide with my case management conferences. And that was in an effort to try to ensure that attorneys were not having to come down to the courthouse, multiple times in a week. And most of the judges in our division, I'm the only one that has two different offices. Most of them have their certain hearing days, and it could be different for every judge, and then different trial days by and large.
We are now in a new reality. It's like, I've never seen times like this. I hope I never do again. It's like,
yeah.
Can you say it's unbelievable? It's terrifying, for lack of a better word. And now things are different. And what I'd like to explore is, what are some of the differences? I mean, a lot of your time was taken up with trials, with hearings, with emergency matters such as PPOs, and you've explained a lot of what you do. So what is happening now? Tell us.
A lot of my time now is developing the protocols for our new virtual world. Wayne County is unique in that we don't control our clerk's office, unlike most other courts around the country. And there's a separate, agreement with our clerk's office. They're provided to us by statute, and we don't have direct control over them like we would our typical employees. So during this time, it's been very difficult. They have been a little reluctant to send employees to work, and as a result, it's very much hampered the family division's ability to offer many services during this pandemic. We have been open for emergencies only, with an emergency judge assigned each week. Each of those emergency judges have been here in the Coleman A. Young building, and the public has been coming in to file emergency pleadings and personal protection matters, which has been the majority of what we've been getting in these weeks since the beginning of March. As of this Friday, which is April 17th, I believe, the court, after Friday, the court will be closed to the public. And that's in an effort to get all of the courtrooms fully cleaned and ready to proceed for reopening in some fashion starting May 11th. So I've been working very hard with the other judges in our division to set up appropriate protocols and, overnight have to bring our court into the 21st century. And as you can imagine, there's a lot that goes into that. We've never had online e-filing in the family division. That hasn't been set up by the state of Michigan through the state court administrator office yet. That's, we were slated to do that, and we are slated to do that eventually. And so we haven't had that. And we also have a population here that has a lot of difficulty with transportation, clearly a lot of difficulty with electronics. And so I've been very concerned about that we are still serving our public in an appropriate manner during this pandemic. We did come up with an online PPO process that's being rolled out to the public as of Monday, April 20th, and an online filing process that is up now for emergency filing. So there will be an email set up on the court's website at 3rdcc.org that will have links to e-filing, if you will, remote filing, electronic filing, so to stop the public from coming down to the courthouse. And we're hoping that will also be a benefit for a lot of people, so that from their homes or their offices, that they can submit these documents in an electronic way.
Now, people have had access to the courts. Do they have to wear masks, or have there been any spacing things? I mean, I'm just wondering physically how it's worked in the last month or so since.
Yeah, absolutely. We have our Wayne County Sheriff's Department who's been doing a great job in these times. They've been helping ensuring the emergency judges that are here that there's a staff of Wayne County Sheriffs that are here, and they are making sure that litigants that are coming up to the 18th floor to file things are separated. Just like the general public, some people are leaving their house without masks, and some are coming appropriately with masks and gloves on. We here that are working are ensuring that everyone has masks that wants them, and that we're using a lot of hand sanitizer, and making sure we've removed the ability for litigants to sit in the courtrooms. Everyone is staying out in the hallway so that we don't have. We've had a lot of unfortunate situations with our employees have contracted the virus and have spread it in the courthouse. And so a cleaning company has come through, and they are going floor by floor, courtroom by courtroom, and cleaning those, so that when we reopen, at least in the family division on May 11th, that judges and their staff, which is just going to be, it's intended to have very limited staff starting May 11th, a judge and their JA, and hopefully a court clerk would be present in the building going forward.
Let's describe this. Are you doing a lot of things by telephone as far as pre-trials? Are you still having pre-trials? I mean,
the only thing that's happening and has been happening since the beginning of the pandemic, based on the governor's orders and the Wayne County executive's orders, is emergency hearing. So in the family division, and that's all I can speak to, in the family division, we're only taking emergency filings where the life of a child or a litigant is in jeopardy, is kind of how we're describing emergencies, and personal protection orders. Now, clearly, as this pandemic went from what we kind of all thought might be 2 weeks to we're going into our fourth week, and we're not going to be reopening, or the governor's order extends to April 30th. The definition of an emergency clearly gets more expansive because people have been waiting anxiously for justice. We have situations where parents are taking children and not returning them, violating the governor's orders that parenting time orders are to remain in full force and effect. So we have, as an emergency judge, that's what I'm seeing. We're seeing, then we have orders that come through that parents are asking us to limit parenting time. And by and large, we are not granting those absent something unusual occurring. Parenting time orders are to remain in full force and effect.
So if anything, the status quo is being maintained as much as possible, except in an emergency. I guess that would be a summation of what you're saying, Your Honor.
Much better than mine, yes.
Well, you and I go back a long way.
We sure do.
Let me ask, what will happen when the court reopens? I mean, things are going to have to change. I mean, and reopening, who knows when we're going to get a go-ahead back to work. I mean, yesterday there was this huge thing in Lansing where people say they should be back to work now, but you know, from a medical standpoint, we're not even close. I mean, we're one of the hardest hit states, and Wayne County and Detroit are two of the hardest hit areas in the country, period.
Yes, of course, there's the competing concerns about the health and safety of our employees, buttressed against the realities of the economic, the significant economic consequences of our court remaining shut down and business in general around the Detroit area being shut down. I was in a meeting earlier today, and they're expecting a very significant budget deficit in Wayne County. And so, and more importantly, you know, people need access to the courts. There's business, people, you know, want to get divorced. People want to secure child custody orders. There's this huge issue, of course, during the pandemic with modifications of parties' incomes, and they're looking for relief in that regard. And so we need to reopen the courts. And so our plan, and you're hearing it first, is
share with as many people as possible.
is that as of May 11th, the family division is intending to reopen virtually. Every hearing will be scheduled via Zoom. There is no intention of allowing any public into the building so that the employees of the court can return safely and be less apt to be getting the virus after we reopen, to cut down on any further illnesses. So the intent is the first week. Of course, all the judges have to get used to this new virtual world, and our staff, which is significant. And so it's intended that for the first week, 2 hearings an hour, about a half hour for each hearing, are going to be scheduled via Zoom. And from 9 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, and that from 2 to 4:30 is going to be left open for evidentiary hearings and trials or other matters the judges are trying to schedule on their own dockets once they come back to work. And when I say they're coming back to work, some of our judges will not be coming back to the courthouse directly. They'll be working remotely from home. So each judge is being given an option, and obviously just needs to be able to get up and running in a virtual world in that capacity. And as long as they're able to do that, they're going to be permitted to work remotely. But the intent is week 1, we're going to have get back used to running the Zoom equipment and getting any bugs worked out. And then week 2, we're going to increase the number of hearings to 3 an hour, and from 9 until 2, leaving Fridays open, and from 2 to 4:30 open for makeup trials and evidentiary hearings that got moved. And then in week 3, which is the fourth week in the week of the 25th, May 25th, we're going to be going to 4 hearings a day. 4 hearings an hour, every 15 minutes from 9 until 2 to try to deal with this backlog. So it's all through Zoom. I can't stress that strongly enough. So attorneys really need to get up and running on Zoom. They really need to, I understand from some of our mediators that work in the Wayne County area, that attorneys are assuming that life is going to go back to normal sometime soon, and that will never be the case. I don't know if it'll never be the case. I have no intent of the public really returning to family court through the end of this year. And I don't know if it'll ever fully reopen to the public. There's just, once we all get working on this remote technology, I think there's a lot of benefits to it. And that I don't know that it'll ever go back to full hearings. All the hearings will be staggered, that we are scheduling every 15 minutes. So it's going to be very important. Notices are going to be sent out in the next couple weeks, rescheduling all these hearings. And I'm just letting the attorneys and public know that if they don't get a hearing notice really in the next 14 days to 3 weeks for their rescheduled hearings, that they should be contacting the individual courtrooms after May 11th. Please don't contact before May 11th. There's just nothing that the judges aren't here, and they're not coming back until that period of time. So May 11th is the grand reopening in a slow way, and we really need all the lawyers to seriously consider getting their cases in and mediated via Zoom now. That most mediators are conducting mediations via Zoom, and that's not going to change for them either. And we're going to have a huge backlog. And so do yourselves a favor and do your clients a favor. And to the extent that you are presenting us with stipulated orders filed electronically and prepared to enter consent judgments, we're going to be able to handle so many more of those quickly if that's the situation.
Judge McCarthy, what about trials? I mean, we're talking about hearings. What about someone who says, I need a day or 2 for a trial?
All of those are going to start to be rescheduled, as well as I indicated, starting May 11th from 2 to 4:30 in the afternoons. All of that time is going to be left open for hearing slots. And this is going to be an electronic adjournment that our IT department has been, working tirelessly, helping us in this journey to reopen this court in all the different divisions. But a notice is going to go out electronically advising litigants that your hearing date and time is X, and you're going to appear by Zoom. And that includes trials, evidentiary hearings, motions, all of it.
What about dress? I mean, I'm informal, but I guess when we're back to hearings, suit and tie or sport coat and tie standard? What do you think? I
think it's been very much impressed upon us as judges from the State Court Administrative Office and on nationwide webinars that the decorum of a courtroom is very important for a lot of reasons. And it's expected that whether your hearing's in person or it's through Zoom, that it be appropriate and professional, and that people should dress and behave accordingly.
That's important. I think that's something that, again, should be shared not only with attorneys, but with the public, because, again, public sometimes doesn't get it. And you don't want to walk into court in shorts or jeans. I mean, people should at least show respect, and how you dress shows a certain decorum and respect because it's needed.
Absolutely.
A couple questions, and that is, Do you think there's going to be a huge influx of divorces after this?
You know, I have people have reached out to me regarding the domestic violence issue. And of course, a lot of people, I've seen some national articles where people are assuming that domestic violence is up. I can tell you that I have not seen that to be the case. If you look at our PPO filings, usually in the days before the pandemic, Wayne County would get 25 new personal protection order filings a day. In this pandemic, that number's been cut in half. So we're and our courtroom has been open, courthouse has been open for PPO filings, and it's going to go remote as of Monday, but much less. And I have a theory. I don't know if it's correct or not, but I think that when you close down the bars and you close down the places that people can gather to get drunk and high, that the anger doesn't follow. And so I think people are behaving themselves better. I think they're not out running the streets. They're not out having too much to drink, having too much to ingest. And I think that helps. I think it helps. And I think things have been calmer. And I actually hope that we're going to see a bunch of dismissed divorces, that people had a chance during this epidemic to go back to basics with their family and spend quality time at their homes with each other, and in a little bit less stress environment, less electronics, less doing with everything less, and getting back to basics. And I really hope that we see the opposite.
It's a good point. I mean, people have been asking me that question. I've got kind of 4 points. Number one, perhaps more divorces. Number two, perhaps more babies. Number three, I thought maybe a rise in domestic violence, but you've raised a good point. And the fourth thing, possibly, but bars are closed, but issues over substance abuse and alcohol abuse because people are stuck home. But, you're raising some good points. We have less than a minute. So are there some final thoughts that you would like to share with our viewers, Judge McCarthy, before we sign off?
I just ask that people be patient. I know this is so difficult on the public, and the Wayne County judges are eager and ready to get back to work and to help resolve their dockets in the most expedient way that we can. And I just ask that people, try to resolve as much as they can through mediators and present to the judges stipulated orders, and be prepared for their Zoom hearings on time with all their paperwork already gathered together, because to handle this volume via Zoom every 15 minutes, we really need people to stick to schedules. And that's the benefit of not having a cattle call. You're going to have your individual time, and we just ask that you adhere to that or contact the court for an adjournment ahead of time.
Judge McCarthy, we're out of time. I want to thank you so much for appearing by Zoom. I guess we're trying it out, and as always, you're a welcome guest. And I want to thank our viewers for watching Gracefully Graying. Thank you so much, Judge McCarthy. I really appreciate it. And you really, I think when this goes live, you're giving some important information that's valuable, not only for the legal community, but also for the public. So I thank you so much.
Thank you, Henry. Be well.
You too. Stay safe and be well.
Okay.